so. Okay, the time is now 6:30. I'm going to call the session of the Ridgefield City Council to order. Would you please rise and join me for the flag salute? Councilor Wells, would you lead us?
Sure.
Yeah.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, you may be seated. Miss Julie, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Davis.
Present.
Councilmember Favela. Here. Councilmember Wells.
Here.
Councilmember Burkle.
Here.
Councilmember Hamilton. Here. Mayor Pro Tem Chipman.
Here.
Mayor Cole.
Here. Thank you very much. Mr. Stewart, are there any late changes to the agenda? All right, well, we'll move on then. We have, starting us off tonight, a proclamation, and this is for Disability Employment Awareness Month. And I'll read it first, and then we'll have you come up and receive it, and then we'll give you a chance to say a few things if you would like. But we're glad to have you here. So, okay, the proclamation says, whereas in October 2025, we celebrate the 80th anniversary of National Disability Employment Awareness Month, an annual recognition of the positive impact of people with disabilities in the workforce. And whereas this yearly event began in 1945 as a week-long national observance of the contributions of people with physical disabilities. In 1988, Congress designated NDEAM and acknowledged the importance of including those with mental health conditions and other non-obvious disabilities in the recognition. And whereas leading up to America's 250th anniversary in 2026, this year's observance will highlight the achievements of Americans with disabilities, both past and present. Celebrating America means celebrating the value and talent that all Americans, including people with disabilities, add to our nation's workplaces and communities, said Secretary of Labor Lori Chavez de Riemann. That is the spirit behind this year's official theme, celebrating value and talent. And whereas this year also marks the 35th anniversary of the Americans with Disability Act, the ADA, together with the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, established the rights of adults and children with disabilities to fully participate in all aspects of American society. And whereas Clark County Developmental Disabilities Advisory Board provides community part leadership on improvement of efficiency and effectiveness of community development disability programs. And whereas the City of Ridgefield supports the goal of equity, equal opportunity, independent living, economic self-sufficiency for people with disabilities. Now, therefore, I, Matt Cole, Mayor of Ridgefield, do hereby proclaim the month of October 25 as Disability Employment Awareness Month and urge residents to embrace the talents and skills that workers with disabilities offer to promote the right to equal employment for all, dated this 11th day of September, 2025. Sign that real quick. Okay. You can come up and receive it here. Thank you. And actually, we'll just come back to a photo real quick, actually. Is that where, yeah.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. It is an absolute honor to be here. My name is Randy Knott. I'm a member of the Clark County Developmental Disabilities Advisory Board. I'm also an autism mom, otherwise known as a polar bear with a chainsaw. So if you've met us, we're pretty strong people. When my personal story, which brought me to disability advocacy, is when my daughter was 2, they told us she would never speak, never potty train, set up a supported living account, and love her as she is. She is now a Dean's List senior in college, graduating at the top of her class, and assistant director of her Pride Center. So, yes, thank you. Thank you. I want to see those outcomes for every child, especially here in Washington, and specifically here in Clark County. So as leaders, if you ever need assistance with IEPs or other things, I'd love you to come to us and let us know. The Disabilities Advisory Board gives recommendations to the County Council on how we can better serve both developmentally, intellectually disabled people in our county and provide services. And then last, I'll let you get on with your meeting, but we are having an event on October 8th, and it is a celebration of those, and there'll be an awards dinner going out to both employees and employers who have made a difference in this community. So it will be held at Clark College in Geyser Hall on Fort Vancouver Way. And if you are interested, I will leave information on that event, and I hope to see you there. Thank you so much for this honor. And just one shout out to Kristen Wade, our wonderful staff person. We have such amazing staff at the county. We couldn't do any of this without them. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes. Do we want to do a photo? Yeah. Would you like to do a photo up front, Randy?
Oh, I would love to.
Sure. We'll come down for that real quick. Yeah.
I'm gonna stand way over here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just gonna say the same thing.
Okay. All right, we're going to move on to public comment. It is now time for public comment. Anybody wishing to address the City Council regarding items not subject to a specific public hearing may come forward at this time to the podium or use the raise hand feature located at the toolbar at the bottom of your Zoom screen. For controls over the phone, press *9 for raise hand and press *6 to mute or unmute. Please state your name and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Is there anybody here in the building tonight that would like to give public comment? All right, Ms. Julie, anybody online?
Not seeing anyone online, Mayor.
Okay, we will go ahead and close public comment and move on to our consent agenda. Council, I'd accept the motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Council, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, thank you, Council. The motion carries. And we have a couple of presentations this evening. The first one tonight is for our Youth Advisory Board, and this will be led by Ms. Notnaris. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mayor. As council requested, I am going to introduce a concept for Ridgefield's first youth commission. In a nutshell, a youth commission is basically a board that's driven by youth. It's an advisory board to council. It can be a leadership program, but it's basically to provide a way to assure that youth-oriented point of view is heard on community issues and specifically on issues that are of interest to young people. I did a fair amount of research in coming up with the proposal or the idea that is before you tonight. I started with Clark County Youth Commission. They have been around since 1998, so have a fair amount of experience in this area, so talked to them quite a bit. But you can see I also looked at other cities in Washington and Oregon that have youth commissions that are similar to the one I'm going to discuss, as well as other national resources and MRSC. And California actually has a state organization on youth commission. So did a lot of research in creating this idea. I did learn that there are a number of opportunities to youth as well as to the community in a youth commission. First of all, a lot of opportunities for mostly high school age students. They can have an opportunity to gain new skills that they might not otherwise obtain, whether that's in leadership or collaboration or decision making in a group. It also provides opportunities to learn about government and what issues are of importance in the community that they are involved in. Also, a number of benefits to the community itself. First of all, it helps to create kind of a strong, active, inclusive community. So it is inclusive of a youth perspective that is not otherwise present. And kind of a side benefit, youth are more apt to be involved in government as an adult if they get involved at a young age. Secondly, it guarantees that there is a youth voice in decisions that the community makes. As the two pictures that you see in the opportunities for youth as well as in the benefits for the community were an instance when the city decided to get youth perspective on the skate park, which was great, and we've also had youth, come to council meetings to talk about what they want to see in a skate park, which was a really good opportunity to get them involved. A youth commission would create more of a structured way to assure that that type of input happens on a regular basis. It also gives the youth a voice in actually seeing decisions that are made with their point of view. One more. I think I covered both of those. So my suggestion for how this commission would be organized is that the mayor appoints, with council confirmation, 9 members of the commission, along with up to 3 alternate members. This idea of alternate members was pretty universal in every commission that I looked at, and the purpose for that is to assure that there is a continuity of the program as well as progress on whatever project that they are working on. With student schedules and active communities, there is sometimes not a quorum of the actual members. So an alternate member would be involved in all of the meetings, all of the research, all of the activities that the commission is otherwise involved in, but would only have a vote if there otherwise would not be a quorum of members. So they're still involved, just don't have a vote, unless there is one meeting when it's necessary to create a quorum. All of the members, including the alternate members, would serve 2-year terms from October 1st through September 30th. There are a number of commissions that don't meet during the summer months, but I guess that would be up to the commission itself each year. And then the commission members would appoint or elect a chair and a vice chair to lead them during 1 year. And then the suggestion is that members, along with staff, each year would decide a meeting schedule. Student schedules are very different, so instead of suggesting a specific date and time that the commission always meets, the suggestion is that members get to decide that on an annual basis to fit everyone's schedule. So who can apply? Any youth entering the grades 8 through 12, if they're attending View Ridge Middle School or Ridgefield High School, would be eligible to apply. Second category would be any student that is of the same age entering 8th through 12th grade that lives in Ridgefield but attends a different school. So that could be a homeschool, a private school, it could be a school in another district, but as long as they live here and they are enrolled in a school program, they would be qualified to apply for the commission. They would also be required to maintain their attendance in a school program during the entire time that they are participating on the commission. So, how does the commission operate? Basically, City Council would assign a topic or project area for the commission to look at. I'm going to talk about that picture in a minute. I see all these weird faces. So first, City Council assigns a topic. Youth Commission does research on that topic and then creates a report and makes their recommendations to City Council about how they would handle whatever that topic area is. So the picture is actually from the Clark County Youth Commission. In 2021, their assigned topic was to look at an engaged, healthy, and inclusive community, kind of coming off of COVID and still being kind of in the throes of what that meant. That was their assignment. And this is the report that they came up with recommendations to the county council about what that means for them. So I put this here because usually when you think about reports coming to City Council, they look a little bit different than this. So this will come up for your decision about how you want to see reports, but just to get you to think outside of the box a little bit, the youth decide in this case how they want to report to council on their recommendations. So next thing, what are the functions? Basically, they perform research. So the council assigns a topic, and a lot of what the commission spends their time doing is performing research on that topic, whether that means working with an expert to obtain information, talking to other youth about input, engaging with the community, whatever the commission thinks that they need to do to get all of the information that they need in order to make a recommendation to council on the assigned topic area. They also collaborate with other members of the commission in trying to create ideas and recommendations. And then they make a report to council. They also should go beyond that a little bit and represent the commission to the community, educate the community about who they are and what the commission is and what they're doing and why it's important. And secondly, engage with other youth that could be their same age or younger on the value of being involved in local government, whether that's on this type of commission or in another way. The Youth Commission would be managed mostly by the commission members. The idea of a youth commission is that it is a youth-driven effort with the guidance of adults and City Council. So the first thing would be that the City Council adopts an ordinance that creates the commission and the structure of the commission. City Council then has the authority to adopt the rules of procedure, just like any other commission that the city has, whether it's the Planning Commission or the Parks Board. City Council would adopt the rules of procedure that could look very different from other boards and commissions, but that gives the commission idea of how to operate and how they should how they should look at their assigned topic and how they should collaborate with each other and the type of report that you want to see. And the rules of procedure that I've seen are all over the board. Clark County, as you might have guessed, is pretty open. They kind of just meet in a big circle and have conversations and do focus groups and do brainstorming. There are other types of commissions that sit at a dais just like you and follow Robert's rules and have conversations that way. So the rules of procedure would dictate how you think it would be most effective for a Ridgefield Youth Commission to operate. Then the city manager has the authority to appoint a staff member as program manager, And that staff person would coordinate the training and organization and facilitate meetings, obtaining experts, whatever is necessary to support the commission. The suggested topic area for 2025-26 is electric bikes, electric scooters, and electric mini motorcycles. You may have noticed that has been an increase in these types of bicycles or scooters around the city, and a lot of questions about the risks and benefits, whether there should be regulation, should there be licensing, what should that be? And since there is a large youth population that owns these types of, I don't know what to call them, bikes, it would be up to them to come up with the answers to some of those questions and recommendations to council on that topic. So next steps, tonight I am interested in hearing your direction and answering your questions about what you think the Ridgefield Youth Commission should look like. At the next meeting will be the first reading of an ordinance that incorporates that direction, that creates a Ridgefield Youth Commission. And then in October, we would spend some time recruiting members and appointing them. Recruiting will look a little bit different for youth than it probably does for adults. The advice that I have received is that it is very helpful if council members get into the schools and talk to classes, not necessarily the leadership classes, but classes of students who might be interested in being involved in something like this, which could be in any class. Because it's going to take some time. So there could be students that just are looking for something that to get involved in the community, to make a difference, to help them be a leader in a different way. We also can contact parents through an email that the school sends to all parents, so we can do that as well. And maybe flyers if we want to do that. So, but the recommendation is get into the schools. That's where you're going to reach most of the students. Mm-hmm. So that should happen during the recruiting process in October. And hopefully we can have that completed and appointments made so we can start maybe a little bit late on the term this year, but get things going with commission meetings in November. And I think that's all I have. Just happy to hear any questions or direction that you might have.
Great, thank you very much. And I'm particularly excited about this one. This is something that council, this is part of one of our retreat initiatives from earlier in the year. I think that several of us came to that retreat with this in mind, and so there was a lot of enthusiasm about it. And so with that, council, with what has been presented tonight, I think what they're looking for is just feedback on the structure and how the program would work from your vantage point. So we have a draft ordinance for next meeting. So I'll look around and see if there's anybody has anything. We'll start with Councilor Hamilton and we'll work our way over.
Thank you very much. First of all, I love this idea. I think in particular because I have an 8th grade daughter and I'm around a lot of 8th grade girls, and I would love to channel their energy more productively. So I wrote a number of questions. I'll ask one, and then I'm sure everyone has similar questions. So I think it's really important that we include as many kids as possible from different vantage points. So I was wondering how you thought we would make sure the youth that already are not engaged in leadership roles or who have barriers like jobs or transportation, how we could get them represented.
Good question. My thought is that we really need to create a very robust recruiting effort so we can get information to and encourage students that are involved in all kinds of activities or not involved in any activity, get them to apply. And part of that information would be that there isn't a set meeting schedule. We want to work with them around the jobs and the transportation and the sports and whatever it is that they're involved in so that they are able to attend the meetings. And they get to decide what that looks like.
That's a great,
And
great
then the
idea.
other thing is, I mean, council can consider making sure that students of different populations or different backgrounds or involvement are appointed, so there is a good diverse group that is on the commission.
Thank you.
Great. Councilor Burkle.
I'm absolutely thrilled to death to think that we're going to do this. Thank you. It's absolutely terrific. Do we at this point have any idea at all as to how often they may or may not meet?
My thought is that they would need to meet at least monthly, maybe more often. But
Yes.
it also doesn't have to be the second Tuesday of every month. I mean, they can come up with a schedule that works for them.
Sure.
But in order to continue to make progress, I think they would need to meet at least monthly.
Perfect. That's terrific. Thank you, and what an absolutely remarkable idea.
Great. Councilor Wells, any?
I concur. It is really a good idea. I have a couple of questions, though. You said that they would be in the Ridgefield district. Is that the school district? So that takes in 199th Street or Mount Vista, all those areas, they would be eligible?
That's correct. If they're attending the middle school or the high school, they would be
98642.
eligible. Pardon me?
98642?
Correct.
Okay, that encompasses everything that way. I think that they should be exposed to Robert Rules of Order. That's personally, that's something that they would use lifelong. And if they haven't been exposed to it, that would be something that would be a good training ground. And the e-bike recommendation, I think that is excellent. The only thing is, I don't know whether we want to wait that long to turn around and have some rules in place, because it looks like it's going to be next year before they'll be coming back with any recommendations, because they're going to have to meet for a while. So I'm just bringing that out, whether we want to wait that long, but it would be an excellent, excellent exercise for them to get involved in the city. And I had one other thing, and I would like to defer on to the next person. I will have one other question.
Sounds
when I
good.
think of it.
We'll come back to you. Okay, great. Mayor Pro Tem.
Love the idea. I'm thinking that we probably are going to have either staff or someone that we use anyway.
Is it on?
Oh, I thought it
There
was,
it is.
okay, to be present and assist in this type of thing, and maybe even with the transportation, I don't know, probably with where they meet, all that type of thing. Is that what you're thinking, Ms. Notners?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, to facilitate them being able to meet and have all these meetings or whatever. Some of them might not have transportation and all kinds of barriers that could happen for certain ones, but we want to be able to include all of them. No, I think it's a great idea. I'm very much in favor of it. Thank you.
Great.
I'm also in favor. I'm really excited about this, and I really do appreciate the idea of allowing students who are in private or alternative or home schools to participate. I think we really narrow the scope if we just say Ridgefield School District. We open the door and opportunity for students for a variety of reasons. And you know, I know many foster children that live in Ridgefield but go to school outside of the district where they came from, and living in adversity like that kind of deters them from wanting to participate in leadership opportunities. And when we break those barriers down, we allow them to have these opportunities. So I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Great. And Councilor Davis?
Yeah, thank you. I echo everybody's excitement about this. I'm thrilled that we're bringing this forward. I definitely second Councilor Hamilton's desire to channel 8th grade energy in productive directions as an 8th grade teacher. Curious, when we went through the process for the Youth Parks Board member, we used a blind selection. Would we use a similar process for this?
We can, if that's what council would prefer, we can absolutely do that again, yes.
Okay. I mean, I think I would prefer that. I think that we all agreed that that was a productive way to do it. Also, would they be, I'm assuming they are, but would they be subject to Open Public Meeting Act and records retention, just like a Parks Board member or Planning Commission?
Yes, they would.
Okay, so I guess just adding emphasis that we'll really have to work with them on that, knowing how group texts work and everything like that related to it. And then just a recommendation for possible meeting place time, maybe the upstairs at the Rourke. I mean, if we're gonna have 12 kids, it's, you know, the dais is not big enough to accommodate that. But maybe that's an option because it's right in between the two schools that we're gathering from, possibly. And if we were to schedule it for right after school, maybe that removes some barriers for transportation and stuff like that. Just an option to throw out there for consideration. But I think that's definitely a worthy, you know, thing to be focused on, is making sure we don't have those types of barriers in place as we start recruitment. But I'm totally thrilled. I'm so excited to see this come to fruition. I thank you for your work on it.
Great, thank you, Counselor. Great. A couple thoughts from me of, you know, on this one, and maybe a couple of questions. First is just regarding the eligibility or qualifications to be on it. You know, we were looking at this, and I forget what the draft said, but what I like is that, you know, speaking to what Counselor Favela said, is also making sure we give it opportunity to kids who maybe are not in a Ridgefield school. So kind of what I had penciled out, I don't know if this is what it says or not, but essentially you'd live in the school district and attend a school that is in the district. So if you live outside the city limits, you'd have to live in the district, but still be attending one of the Ridgefield schools, or you'd have to live in the city limits, and then you would attend, it's any kind of alternative school, to be homeschool or you know, private school or something like that. So yeah, Running Start, any of that, but then you'd have to live inside the city limits. And so that feels a little clunky and cumbersome, but that was just kind of like where my head was at, just kind of figure out how to balance it to make sure that we get, we can maximize our reach on this, and but also still keep it Ridgefield. As far as term goes, the presentation said 2 years. The draft ordinance said 1 year. In the packet, I'm kind of in favor of maybe 1 year, just going school year to school year. That's how they do a lot of ASB elections, and you know, I think it gives more of an opportunity if they're going to have a single issue, then maybe being able to go through the whole school year, work on that issue, and then you kind of can hand that off, and you know, even allowing them to seek reappointment if they were like really, really into it. You know, if we had somebody, because I think sometimes that continuity is really nice. As we know on this council, it's nice to have that continuity. So that would be a thought as well. And then, what was the other thing? Oh, are there any budget considerations to this? I know we're in budget season right now, and so like, are the things we need to do? Because I'm thinking, like, you know, you're talking about training them and doing an orientation, and you know, if we're gonna go with maybe having to do Robert's rules, I think there's gonna probably be need if they have not been exposed to that, going through that. So I could see it potentially where you could say like a weekend, like a single day retreat or whatever, maybe a half day retreat where they go through and they kind of go through Robert's rules, or they go through maybe some of, like, get kind of briefed on an overview of maybe the issue they're going to be discussing or something like that. But you know, I think that it would be worthwhile if we haven't considered a budget for this, maybe a small appropriation to cover it as well. So other thoughts, council? We'll go back to Councilor Hamilton and we'll kind of hop around after that.
Thank you. So I was thinking about this just longer term, so I had some ideas I just wanted to throw out there, or thoughts, less than ideas. So I wanted to do two things, like in 5 years, how do we measure the success of the commission? Like, what outcomes should the city look for to come out of here? And then also, what's our plan to keep the momentum up each year? As far as recruitment goes. And I really liked your ideas about recruitment. I think an email to the parents is a great idea always, just to make sure that there's that backup. But I, for one, am happy to go to schools, and I think that is going to be the best way that we get people involved. And so I really appreciated those ideas. So.
Yeah. Who else? Councilor Davis.
Thank you, Mayor. So the recommendation of the 1 year, 2 year, kind of got the wheels turning in my head. So I guess I'm curious, and not to put you on the spot, Ms. Notnaris, but the recommendation is 2, and I'm assuming that stemmed from somewhere. Can you give us the background on why the recommendation was 2. Like, is that a best practice from a lot of the other ones, or what's the background?
That is
there?
a best practice from all of the other ones, to have 2 years. And I think it's partly because of continuity.
Yeah.
And kind of the second year, you are become a leader and a mentor for for the newer members.
So like a staggered
correct.
6 and 6, like
Correct.
the initial one might be 6 2-year
Oh.
and 6 1-year, and kind of create the rotation that way.
And actually,
or-
I'm sorry, I did, yes,
sorry.
I'm sorry, I did miss, Clark County is actually only 1 year,
Oh,
but there
okay.
are a number of students that have done multiple years,
Okay.
including Ridgefield students, by the way.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, I gotta give Counselor Burkle credit for this one. He said transportation could be solved. They could have pedal e-bikes. To come. No, that's a little tongue in cheek. The other one that I couldn't remember, and I had it wrote down here, and that is have their exposure at the state of the city. And let them give a little report for what they had accomplished this year and how we had them involved.
Councilor Favela.
Maybe that could be one of their projects, is actually putting on the state of the city,
I think that's a great idea.
right?
At least,
Oh, man. Who else has thoughts or comments to this? Just a thought, and I don't want to make it too complex, but one on the recruiting aspect of it. We did this with the Parks Board last year, the Youth Parks Board member, and we ended up getting, I think, 6 or 8 applicants, and I think we got a good, but you look at a 9-member board plus 3 alternates, you obviously want more than 12 kids applying, so, as word is getting out with this, and we have potentially maybe a shorter recruitment timeline for this first one. Maybe we can consider the first year would be a single year appointment, and they can re-up or something like that. And then subsequent appointments would be for 2 years. I think what's going to happen, and the reason why I suggest that is because I wonder if when I went into the schools last year, it was a little awkward at times, like kind of like just like what's this about? What kind of information are we presenting? How do you get people to get interested in this? And I really do hope that we can all go into schools and team up on this one. I think that'd be really impactful. But as word gets out, I think that what's going to happen is there's going to be more students who want to be a part of it, and they'll know about it. And so like you'd probably have a bigger recruitment process next year, get a lot more turnout to that, and then we'd be off to races after that. So another question I have too is, do we feel like one issue, like in your research, is one issue enough if we're going to go basically a school year?
it can depend on the topic area, but yes, I think one is enough.
Okay.
I mean, it doesn't say, that doesn't mean you can't come up with another one if they get done, but I think it's sufficient, yes.
Okay, just making sure. Yeah. Okay.
Am I on? Yeah. Would we be able to, if we have a whole youth commission, allow them to participate in community events? Like when we do booths, would they be able to do that? Or is there some like clause that would prevent youth from participating in events like that or volunteering in that capacity?
Absolutely, they could
Okay.
participate. And there are some commissions that actually require, or cities that actually require that anyone on the youth commission does a certain number of community service hours for the city, which is often in event-type activities. So yes, I mean, depending on the age, there are probably some authorization and permission that we need to get, but yes, I think that's a great idea.
Okay, I think I would love that. I don't know if I want to make it mandatory because students are really busy and they have sports and things, but I think I would want to make it highly encouraged that they participate in the community events that we have.
Cool. Other thoughts, other questions for staff at this point, council? Do you feel like you have feedback you need from us at this point? Is there anything else you're looking for from us?
No, I think that's good. I think I have what I need.
Sounds good. If there's no others, well, yeah, we'll move on. Excited about this. Looking forward to seeing this again in a couple weeks. A few weeks. Okay. All right. We're going to move on in our agenda. We have a second presentation tonight. This one's going to be a little bit more policy heavy, and this is the Envision Ridgefield 2045 draft transportation and public facilities elements. And we'll go to Ms. Claire Lust.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council and members of the public. Our second presentation this evening is on Envision Ridgefield 2045, the city's 20-year comprehensive growth management plan update, specifically on first draft of the public facilities and transportation goals and policies. Before I forget, Jody Mesher is here supporting this evening. Jody's with WSP, the consultant that the city is working with on this project. All right, so Council, we have come before you in both presentations and study sessions several times now with draft goals and policies for different elements of the comprehensive plan. And these are the last two mandatory elements that we haven't fully touched on yet, so transportation and public facilities. Before I jump straight into the draft goals and policies, and we'll go through those kind of one goal at a time as we have done before, present and then seek comment from council. Just to add a bit of context and a reminder of where we're coming from and where we're going with all of this, I'm going to pull up what is kind of a sneak preview of some boards you'll see if you come to our community open house next Tuesday, 6 p.m., this room. But really to show like where we're coming from with these goals and policies. Obviously, staff and our consultants are writing them, but we're not, pulling these ideas out of thin air. A really important source for these goals and policies is the community vision that we worked with the community to come up with vision statements previously, and council adopted those. So, for example, what's before you now is we're going to be talking about, parks and public facilities, and then transportation and climate as kind of stations at the open house is just what this is for. But you can see on both of these, there's a little discussion of connection to the community vision. So that's where we kind of dig into a little contextualization of where these ideas are coming from. In addition to that community vision, we are, in drafting these goals and policies, considering council input, both kind of in general and things that come up when we're talking about other elements. I'd say, for example, as council has talked deeply about land use over the past year, the concept of mixed-use hubs has come out of that, and that then ties into the transportation element that we're looking at tonight. We also are taking inspiration from the current comp plan. This is an update, we're not throwing it out completely and starting over. There's a lot of good policy language in there that still rings true for Ridgefield now and across the next 20 years. So we've drawn from that source. And then staff input as well, particularly for the elements we'll be discussing tonight. Our public works staff has had a lot of input on how those have been formed. Going forward, from this, several month moment in time where we're bringing you these draft goals and policies, we are taking your input. We're taking Planning Commission's input. We'll be taking input we get from our open house next week, and which will also have an online component. I can talk about that a bit more later. And those are kind of opportunities to take these elements we've been looking at sort of on their own in different combinations and start to see the picture as a whole come together. And from there, to be determined exactly how that all comes back to you in Planning Commission for hearings and action. But this is where we'll start to move forward and bring those different elements together and start looking at them in different combinations and see how everything is working together. So with that, I'll go into the presentation. first here is just our agenda for the evening. The first section will be draft public facilities goals and policies with discussion and feedback. Then similarly for transportation goals and policies. Next slide. So this is, one step on a path towards developing consensus on draft goal and policy language, as I just mentioned, input from both the Planning Commission, Council, and the public as we sort of narrow down towards something that ultimately we'll be asking for action on. All right. Jumping into the public facilities element, as I mentioned, this is a required element of our comprehensive plan. And important to note that this element in particular is tied to the adopted capital facilities plan, which our council adopted earlier this year for water and stormwater and general facilities as well. So it's really policy level language to affirm a lot of those projects and directions adopted through those capital facilities plans. And of course, public services and availability of public services are a really essential part of the Growth Management Act. The set of draft goals and policies, a few key staff members who worked on them were the previous and current Public Works Director, as well as our lead water and stormwater staff. 4 goals here to go through. The first one is pretty generalist. It's on general facilities and services the city provides to the public. So efficiently provide and maintain public facilities and services to support community needs within the Ridgefield urban growth area. And as we've done before, I will go ahead and pause and turn it back to you, Mayor and Council.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Lust. Okay, so Council, as we've done in the past with these, looking through each of these policies attached to this goal, we can walk through them each one at a time, or if you see anything that stands out to you, feel free to just jump in and offer comment on that. I'll look around. Is there anybody on that one? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. On 311, I noticed we list parks. Do we need to list trails, or is that kind of inclusive in this context?
Can certainly add trails to that language to clarify.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm assuming we want to keep this pretty broad, right? So we're not looking at it and saying, hey, over the next 20 years, we're going to need to add X, Y, and Z buildings or something. This is more just kind of a broad sense of saying cover all the bases, right?
That's correct. The general facilities plan that council updated earlier this year, late last year, I don't remember exactly when that was. That was the project of identifying more specific needs in terms of facilities, city buildings, and then the park CFP did that work for park and recreation facilities. So this is kind of coming in behind that, and as you said, sort of underpinning that with broad policy language that supports those documents at that really high level.
Mm-hmm. I'll look around here. If we're good with this one, it looks like, okay.
All right, we can go ahead and move along, and I will note that because I can count from 1 to 4, we will change policy 3.1.4 to 3 and 3.1.5 to 4. All right, moving along. Public facilities goal 2 is all to do with water. It's a topic that council has quite a bit of touch on recently with the recent adoption of the water capital facilities plan. Ensure a reliable, safe, and high-quality public water supply within the Ridgefield UGA. Once again, back to you, Mayor.
Okay, so there's quite a few on this one, Council. Questions or comments? We'll start with Councilor Hamilton.
Thank you. This is more for my education. This one kind of percolated my brain. It was 3.2.5. Is there any legal, financial, or political issues with trying to phase out private water systems?
Mr. Thamert, do you have any comment on that?
So we wouldn't really be looking at wanting to phase out existing wells, private wells that are being used in the same use that they've been for years. It would be when a development comes in, we would want to have them switch over to our water supply or our water system.
Perfect. That is what I was wondering, so thank you.
Councilor Favela.
Yes, thank you. Mine was for 3.2.1, encourage existing development with private wells to connect to public water as soon as available. So these are current developments on wells and then encouraging them to switch over. And who would bear the cost of that? Would that be the residents, or how would that impact them negatively potentially?
So current practice, from my understanding, is when public water infrastructure is installed within X feet of an existing residence that's on well, they are required to connect at their own cost.
Okay.
There's an if at the end of the sentence, which is if the well fails. So if you are on a private well and then water lines are brought within 300 feet, I think 300 feet of the residence, then, or the parcel, then it is offered to the property owner and they can connect at their cost. Or if that well fails, then there is a requirement that they connect instead of doing an entirely new well. And generally that's because the cost of digging a new well and doing all of that, it's roughly equivalent to the connection fee that you would end up paying. There also are programs that I know that Clark Regional Wastewater District has for their services, and then as a policy implementation, it could be something that a council considers as a future action, but that would be beyond the policy itself here.
Yeah, I think it's great. There are always unintended consequences that come sometimes, and I would hate to put someone in a significant financial bind.
Understood.
Okay.
Yeah, understood. That's why it's only if it fails. And if you have a well that fails, we have someone that we're working with right now. The cost to actually do a new well is about $15,000. So when you look at the cost of the new well versus connection fee, it actually becomes a much more balanced equation versus if you have a perfectly good well, there is no requirement to connect.
Councilor Burkle.
3.2.5, discourage development of use of private drinking water wells. Could people in our community drill their own well inside the city?
No, currently we do not allow drilling of new wells. Our code prohibits it. If you were not close to our existing system within a certain amount of feet, I'm not sure what that is off the top of my head, but then we could permit a well, but that's only a few places in the city that are not close to our existing water system.
Thank you.
Councilor Wells.
Yeah, I thought it was my understanding that you could drill an irrigation well. Is that prohibited just for irrigation?
It is prohibited, yes.
On 3.2.4, we talk about water resources. I want to make sure I understand that. Like, what do we define as a water source? Is that a source of water? And is there, I don't want to make sure I understand this correctly, so correct me if I'm wrong, but as we often talk about having to purchase new water rights, and so there is our own water supply, and sometimes there is sort of a secondary water supply that comes from outside the city. Is that correct? And is there sort of an idea of like where those water resources come from? Should they stay within the city, develop them ourselves, or does it matter at all?
So as it's currently written, the policy actually addresses both of those opportunities. When we are talking about water resources, we are talking about developing water rights.
Yeah.
It's just a different way of saying it.
Yeah.
But the water resources that we, for example, at Kennedy Well, we're developing water resources within the city. and that's the Kennedy well. We're also looking up by Ridgefield High School for water rights there, looking on the west side by Lake River on the east side as well. So that's developing our own water resources within the city. And then it also states work with CPU to develop regional water resources. Think of the intertie that we have. Those are water resources that are from outside our jurisdiction, but they are regional in both source and benefit. So what this policy is stating is it's kind of an all of the above, looking at inside our own jurisdiction for additional water resources, but also looking at regional opportunities to connect.
Is there a split that we kind of target there? Are we saying, hey, like I'm assuming that we probably could not supply our entire city with water resources within the city, and we have to go with an intertie?
We have in the past, in the very recent past, we have, and a lot of that has to do with the storage capacity that we have. The East Side Reservoir project that you're all very well aware of, and that we're moving to construction on. That project will create storage capacity for 20 years worth of growth and development on the east side. So we do have a lot that we can do internally. You asked about the cost associated with it. The intertie with CPU provides an overflow valve. What it has done is in our peak months, we've been able to actually use that intertie to assure that we have adequate capacity and that we have great pressure in those peak moments that we've had in the more recent years. As we develop more capacity, internally we will need less of that, as well as the cost associated with going with a regional connection is we pay for that water.
Yeah.
So we pay for the water, we pay CPU for that water currently, and in past we pay retail for that water, meaning that there is no actual delta where if we're investing in infrastructure, pipes in the ground to help bring that water from CPU to us, that price tag is borne by our residents and our ratepayers, and then we still pay retail. So that's something that we're working on, but when we dig a well, it's our well.
Yeah.
So ultimately then you're not paying for that water, you're paying for all of the infrastructure to get the water.
Okay, gotcha. And as far as water resources or water storage capacity goes, I know we have the East Side Reservoir we're getting ready to go to construction on. You just mentioned that it's going to be good for 20 years. Do we envision, like, is that it? Like, we're not looking at any additional storage is going to be needed as a part of it, or?
Well, so we have one big storage tank that is phase one on the east side for the East Side Reservoir, but there's space for two. So there's space for two. There actually is the ability to double the capacity on that, and it's a 2.5 million. So, thank you. I got Jiminy Cricket right over. We've got 2.5 million gallon capacity in the single reservoir that is going to go under construction. There's room for a whole nother reservoir with an additional 2.5 million gallons.
Wow,
so we are certainly looking beyond just this time frame to think of long-term capacity and storage, because both are incredibly important. They work together.
Great, okay.
I have one question.
Yes.
Okay. When is we gonna start construction on that storage facility?
We're hoping to go to bid in October and break ground by the first of the year, maybe November, December.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
All right, council, any other questions or comments on 3.2? All right, we can move ahead.
All right, next slide is stormwater. So goal 3.3, ensure effective stormwater management to support a public health and ecological balance. The policies in here are heavily informed by the work our stormwater team, the ongoing work they are doing and will need to be doing under the new permit requirements. So that team was very involved in crafting and reviewing these policies to make sure they're supportive of their work, just as a note there. Thanks.
Okay, council, on 3.3. Councilor Davis.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just want to point out, I appreciate 3.3.3 being in there. I just think it's important for us to emphasize like the tree canopy goals, including, preserving existing mature trees. I think that should continue to be a priority of ours, and I just like how that recognizes the impact that it can have on stormwater and utilizing, you know, the resources of Mother Nature to an extent as opposed to just infrastructure. So I just want to highlight that. I appreciate that being in there.
Good. Other questions or comments? Councilor Burkle.
On 3.31, managing of stormwater, would that be considered I'll call them bioswales, or whatever the appropriate phraseology is, where the stormwater is directed into those areas?
Yeah, those are certainly a component of stormwater management.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we're good on this one.
All right, I'll just note before we move on, I know I've mentioned this in other presentations, but the ones with the tree icons are ones our team has identified as directly tying back to the climate goals and policies, particularly those goals around greenhouse gas emissions reduction and climate resiliency, which are two required sub-elements of climate. So we're, seeing that climate goals and policies really do intertwine throughout all these other topics, trying to call that out in here when we can. All right, but moving ahead to the last draft public facilities goal. This is to do with the financial side of it. Ensure that general facilities owned or operated by the city are financially feasible and sustainable, particularly through the provision of public services in downtown Ridgefield and other key areas.
Okay, Councilor Hamilton, looks like.
Yes, I don't have a question. I just wanted to highlight 6 and 7, I think are really important part of this plan, and I wanted to just highlight that.
That's good. Yeah, especially number 7. I like the idea of pursuing those public-private partnerships to support the development. So that's always good. Councilor Davis.
Yeah, on 3.4.5, when we got to that slide, it was convenient you mentioned it. I was like, we don't really have any tree icons on that one. And I know that some of like the certification, programs can have some financial requirements that sometimes don't pencil. So I would not want to bind us to, certain, efficiency certifications or anything like that. But I feel like there might be some room for something that says that, hey, we value some sort of, like, for lack of a way of putting it, like green built technology when we're going to be constructing new facilities. Things that consider things like energy efficiency, water flow and use and stuff like that. So I'm not sure exactly how to put that to keep it broad enough, but also kind of speak to that as being a value that I think that we have. So
we can certainly speak to energy efficiency, and to your point, we actually do have a requirement. Is it a state requirement, Kirk? So there's a state requirement that we actually bring Public Works Operations Center up to a higher level of energy efficiency, and it has everything to do with the state's climate goals and their overall desire to reduce energy expenditures. So it does fit. It is absolutely something that we could include, as part of the climate goal without having to put many words to it that aren't already here. Like, we could add a little bit and it definitely would fit.
I mean, and I don't want to just be me speaking up here. I mean, I just wanted to kind of bring it to the forefront to see if there was, some consensus on that. But, to me, it seems reasonable, at least, to have that in mind as a goal.
Okay. I don't see anybody else clamoring to talk, so we can move on with that one.
All right, thanks for your feedback on public facilities. We will carry on forward to transportation. It's a fairly meaty one, but just to create a little bit of context here, the map you're looking at is part of the recently adopted Transportation Capital Facilities Plan, and as we've talked about before, these goals and policies are really meant to support and affirm the work that that capital facilities plan is doing. A couple other important things to note in terms of how this relates to other elements. Under the Growth Management Act, we are required to align transportation and land use, and our transportation element needs to also align with regional plans. This element is another one that our previous Public Works Director had a lot of input into, and more recently our city engineer has reviewed the goals and policies as well. This one has 5 goals, starting with 8.1. This one's all about multimodal transportation options throughout the city and urban growth area. So goal 8.1, invest in and improve efficiency of the transportation system through strategic investments in multimodal design, advanced traffic management and operations technologies, demand management strategies, and transit service.
Okay, council, comments on this one? Go ahead, Councilor Davis.
Yeah, thank you. I guess just to get a little bit more clarification on 814, the part that says providing sidewalks on both sides for all streets. That, I don't know, seems like, I don't know, is that realistic? Sidewalks on both sides of all streets? I mean, even for future development?
Certainly we have, I mean, we have complete streets requirements.
Yeah.
But there are definitely circumstances and situations where we have done kind of double width sidewalks on a single side because of environmental constraints that
Yeah.
exist. And so there have been circumstances, and I can certainly imagine circumstances, where it would be necessary to create a wider multimodal path on a single side because of constraints that you have on the other side. So it certainly is feasible that it wouldn't happen.
I mean, believe me, I'm not trying to take away opportunities for, a safe pedestrian and bicycle transit. I looked at that, I was like, whenever you see the word all, it's like, it stands out. And it's like, okay, is that realistic? But anyway, thank you for the clarification.
I'll say, I don't know if this fits right here, but again, I'm looking at 8.1.4 as well, and we're talking about pedestrian facilities, and I don't know if this would go someplace else, but making sure that we do plan for more walkable areas of our city. And I know we talked about the multimodal aspect of it too, but I think about pedestrian corridors and areas. One thing that I've always admired, if you've ever been to London, you go to sections of London where there are side streets that are they're not accessible by cars or any other traffic. It's just pedestrian, but they're actual public streets, and I really like that. And that's something that as we look towards RISE, our downtown revitalization plan next year, looking at ways we can maybe implement some of that as well, but making sure that we have stuff, because the part of this is it feels like we design so much of our footprint around vehicles. You think about how much space parking lots and streets take up, and then what you could actually do with that. So how do we be efficient with the space? But I think we've covered it here, but I just wanted to call that out, that I think that as we look towards policy suggestions or implications there, that we should be designing more pedestrian friendly areas exclusively.
That reminds me of a conversation I had with somebody recently, and I figured this is a good time to ask it, and I definitely don't want to go too far down a rabbit hole. But somebody asked me, or made a comment about being in a neighborhood where they had, the alleyways, where, all the vehicle traffic went down, the alleyways, so kids could kind of play out in front of the house and not really, cars are still driving down the street, but they're not utilizing driveways. Mm-hmm. And so, cars backing in and out, things like that. And, they're like, how come, a lot of places don't really do that? And I grew up in East Vancouver, and there's a pocket of Fisher's Landing that has alleyways. A friend of mine lived there, and that's just what made me think of it. And it got me thinking on the land use side. My guess is it probably takes up a lot more space to facilitate that, but I wasn't sure. And your mentioning of that kind of brought it to mind, so I figured Is that the case? Is it significantly more land to facilitate that type of a design?
It does tend to be more. We actually have some language in our current code encouraging, and I think in some cases requiring alley loading for attached townhouses. We haven't really seen it been used yet, but that, you know, that came out of, in 2021, we did a housing code update, and that was definitely part of the conversation was, okay, what's the context around these houses? And transportation and walkability being a big part of that. That's kind of how that ended up in our code, but definitely a topic we could explore more.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't want to necessarily go too far down a rabbit hole and steer away from the work that we have in front of us, but it got me curious. And again, when we talk about more walkable and safe neighborhoods, it was just kind of an interesting concept. And yeah, so I maybe offline or whatever.
No,
down
I
the
think we
road.
can certainly, though, broaden the language from just sidewalks to talking about pedestrian-friendly or pedestrian. We can work on terminology for it, but then it could lead to future conversations that do go down the rabbit hole in the implementation side of this, of what does that mean?
Yeah.
Is it a sidewalk, is it an alley, is it a trail, is it what is that? And in different circumstances, but that would be a follow-up conversation. But if we broaden out the language a little bit to take it out from sidewalk and have it more pedestrian-oriented, guideways, some terminology, we can work on that.
Yeah, I think broadening the language, I think that would be good. Because again, when you think about sidewalks, you think, well, sidewalk is there because it's the same area that a car would travel along. And I'm kind of thinking more broadly than that, saying that there's some pedestrian-only corridors that we can have. So yeah, broadening I think would be really good. Any other thoughts or questions here, council, on this policy and on these policies and goals? Okay, we can move on.
Perfect. Next two slides here cover goal 8.2. Key terms here are safety and accessibility. So create a safe and accessible transportation network that prioritizes the well-being of all users.
Okay, if I look at 8.2.2 and we're looking at encouraging, well, not that one, where I just lost my spot here. Okay, we'll move on. I'll catch up. Anybody else have questions or comments on this one? Okay, yeah.
All right. If you'd like to come back to it at the end,
Sure.
we can as well.
Yeah.
But for now, we'll skip ahead to the next one, 8.3. This one
Do you
get.
want to do this page of 8.2?
Oh, is this
I
in a continuation?
It's a continuation.
Okay, excuse me, I thought we'd looked at both of them. But yes, this is the second page of 8.2, so it does go through 8.2.7.
Go ahead.
8.2.5, provide attractive and functional bus stops. Are we talking about city transportation, or are we talking about all bus stops, K through 12?
That's a great question. I believe the intent as written would be municipal transport, but it could certainly be broadened to consider other bus users.
I was just curious. Yeah.
Okay, I think we're good on this one. Yeah, we'll go to 3.
All right, so moving on to 3. This one digs a little deeper into something we have touched on here in 1, which is that integration of land use and transportation. So develop a transportation system that integrates sustainable land use patterns and mixed-use hubs that support public transit and active transportation, thereby minimizing environmental impacts and greenhouse gas emissions. So go ahead and slap a tree icon on this whole one. Back to you, Mayor.
Okay, council on 8.3. Questions or comments? Councilor Favela.
Yeah. When we finally do have an e-bike, e-scooter, e-everything, are those going to be plopped into all of this? Because I see a lot about bicycles and off-trails and transportation, and I feel like there could be overlap or clarification needed. So.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll want to think about what that looks like, especially in terms of any, regulations that the city does adopt over the coming months.
and we can look at integrating them into the goals and policies, because this will be, very likely, this will be adopted prior to the updated rules and regulations, if that is the project that you move forward with for the Youth Commission. So we might, to have it as a placeholder and talk about alternate methods of transport, including e-bikes and scooters, that makes perfect sense to include those. So we'll make sure we do that.
This one's primarily about the land use component of a transportation system, right? And not the actual, yeah, okay,
Correct.
yeah.
But to speak to those different modes, including e-bikes, I think there'd be somewhere in this chapter where that would fit.
Yeah. Okay, I think we can move on from this one too.
All right, 8.4 has a little more technical language in it to do with level of service, which is a specific metric of traffic management and capacity of the street system. So enhance the overall transportation infrastructure and traffic management in Ridgefield to ensure efficiency and seamless connectivity for all modes of transportation, including both traditional level of service and then something we've looked at that is new in this update is non-vehicular level of service as well, so transit, bike, and ped.
Yeah, looking at this one, I think 4.2, especially like consider transit, bicycle, and pedestrian levels of service standards. I think this is an important one because we've been talking about multimodal transportation, but we just kind of throw that out there as if like we say, hey, we need more trails, we need more walking paths and things, but like having a level of service for that, I think is really important for how we define that, and it really will determine if people actually start using alternative modes of transportation rather than just using their car. So I really like that that's included in there. Councilor Hamilton.
Yeah, just on another important note, I think 4.4, neighborhood integrity and adopting parking standards, we've dealt with issues that have come to council in a variety of fashions in this capacity, and I think that is an especially important one as we continue to grow.
Yes, agree. Okay, Councilor Davis.
Yeah, this is more of a curiosity. Would it be appropriate to incorporate something regarding like soliciting public input on some of these alternative solutions? And I imagine that would already be a part of our work. But one of the issues that kind of pops out to me is, one of our neighboring communities to the south is getting, a little bit of heat for some road diet, initiatives that they have pursued. And a lot of the complaint is that, the community feels like they weren't necessarily consulted, listened to, and things like that. Do I think that, there are appropriate, locations where you can narrow things down and make it more bike friendly? Absolutely. But I think that, we would want to pursue a process that, includes community feedback just to make sure, that we are, we're doing what the community wants. And I see where it does say prudent, feasible, and cost effective, but those don't specifically speak to like getting public input. And so is it appropriate to have that, or is that just kind of a safe to assume thing?
No, I think it's absolutely appropriate to have it,
Okay.
Both in the policy language. I believe you're speaking to 8.4.3 in particular.
Yeah.
So yes, that could be added to that policy language, and then I think subsequently it's also could be a really good implementation item.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, other questions or comments on this one, council? We can move on.
All right, last but not least, funding. Secure diverse funding mechanisms to sustain a comprehensive transportation system. Back to you.
Okay. I don't have a comment on this one specifically. I think I was looking for, because we were talking about this, but like the public transportation component of this and how we provide for that, is that attached to, did I miss that? Is it on one of the other goals?
I know we have language on transit in here.
We do, so just going backwards on goal 8.3, if you can go back to that, there's conversation in there about reducing single occupant motor VMT per capita to increase system efficiency, and that talks about transit and getting more people into that. So does 8.3.1.
Yeah, okay.
I know there was another one at least. Thought it was.
Because I think there needs to be something that, that indicates how we think about public transportation. And I know that like right now, I'm not thinking about 2025 Ridgefield because we have one route that C-Tran currently provides. But do we need to be thinking more broadly about like what sort of public transportation mechanisms are available over the next 20 years, and where would that fit in to one of these goals?
So go to policy 8.1 and look at 8.1.3. See if that's kind of where you're headed, Mayor.
Expand transit services as the city develops.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Probably so,
Yeah,
yeah.
because this, and the reason why I bring this up, and this may, forgive me if this is somewhat tangential here, but, over the last few weeks, we've been discussing public transportation a lot, and, just because of some of the more regional stuff that's happening. And then it forces you to look at, okay, well, what do we invest into our public transportation? What goes to our public transportation benefit area, and what do we get back out of it? And then as we were looking at that, our city, what our residents pay into that, and what we get out of it is there's not necessarily, and C-Tran would say there's an operations and maintenance component to that doesn't, it's not a one for one. You're not comparing apples to apples, but we get 10% back of what our residents pay into that. And then it forces you to think, well, what would we want if that was to be more equitable, but to what we pay into that, what would we want to get out of that? And I don't think it's just simply saying, oh, we need to add more bus lines here, because what you see, especially at the C-Tran level right now, is that ridership is really low. And I think that we're at a point, and I'm not a transportation expert at all, but we need to start thinking about how we look at public transit and provide options that people will actually use. And so having a component in here that kind of reflects that, saying, hey, we look at, I guess maybe that 1.3 there maybe addresses it in a broad sense. I don't know if we need to tighten it up a little bit that kind of adds that sentiment in there, where, I can think of we were talking about this yesterday, having a rubber tire trolley that is exclusive to Ridgefield, and you can take from the waterfront to the junction or something like that. I think that could be really cool. I lived in Linden, Washington for a number of years. They had something like that, and they call it Stella. They had names for it. Stella was one of them. It was really kind of a cool bus you took around, but having something like that brings people around town, and that's a public transportation option, even if it's just within the city limits. So.
I believe I dubbed it the crane.
The crane?
The crane. The crane train.
Yeah.
Come on, ride the crane.
We certainly could get a little more specific and just talk about transit services, enhancement of transit services within Ridgefield and connecting Ridgefield with other areas of the region,
Yeah.
and kind of at least call out the differential between those,
yeah.
if that's something that makes sense for you.
Yeah, I think so. Just having something there where we're thinking, we're looking at public transportation, and we're saying, how do we make this useful to our residents? Not necessarily saying, do you want to ride the Current or BRT or whatever to go downtown, but really something where you're going to actually use it. And what I've seen in this town is like when we do 4th of July, for example, people use that because that's usable to them, or they go from downtown to Raptors games or things like that. How do we look at that? And we've even talked about, like, I would kind of jokingly, but maybe halfway serious, is saying, like, maybe a bus isn't it at all. Maybe we need to provide Uber vouchers to people to get around town, because that would get our money's worth out of it, and that's a public benefit. But, something along those lines I think would be good.
Yeah, and I'll just add in too, the reality is that our downtown district is, most people would probably agree, is not super friendly to what they envision a C-Tran bus being, and like navigating through it. And so it's like, how do we work with partners, but how do we implement solutions that are really going to fit like what the nature of our community is, because all of a sudden, like downtown streets aren't just going to get wider and you know, able to take a full-size city bus. And so, you know, whether it's working with existing partners or you know, creating new opportunities or you know, a mix of both or whatever, I think that it is appropriate to say, how do we focus on that and really make it suitable for our specific community?
Councilor Burkle.
Do we have any information currently regarding the number of residents that do use public transportation?
C-Tran does have local ridership numbers for the 48 line that we could get and share with council.
Okay, other thoughts or questions? And I know we kind of backed up a little bit, but going to 8.5 again, is there any specifically on this one or any of the other ones for that matter? Okay.
All right, thank you, council. It's really helpful. If you know you're walking around this weekend and think, man, we're missing X, Y, Z, let me know. There's definitely time to continue modifying these drafts. As I mentioned at the start of the presentation, of course, we now have input on all of our elements from both Planning Commission and Council. Next step will be a community open house / workshop on Tuesday, September 16th, 6 to 8 p.m. in this room. It's really the object is to begin sharing out these goals and policies and themes with the public and get new and better ideas. You know, I've looked at this a ton, y'all have looked at this a ton. We haven't thought of everything. So we invite people to come into this room and participate and share. And there will be an online component as well if you're busy at that time. Thank you.
Great, thank you again, Ms. Luss. All right. Okay, that concludes our presentations for tonight. We're gonna go back to public comment right now. So anybody wishing to address City Council regarding items not specific to subject to a specific public hearing may come forward at this time to the podium or use the raise hand feature located at the toolbar at the bottom of your Zoom screen. For controls over the phone, press *9 for raise hand and press *6 to mute or unmute. Please state your name and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Mr. Jennings.
My name is Michael Jennings. Deputy City Manager Lee Notnaris' presentation about a possible youth commission was excellent. Very, very, very well put together. And thank you, all the rest of you, for your management.
Thank you very much. Yes, expect no less.
Hi, I'm Morgan Rumble. I live just on the county lines on 289th Street. My feedback, we talked a little bit about it. One, thank you so much for all the work you guys do on the policy stuff. I can't even imagine. But, you know, clearly it became important that language is very important. And back to that well system, it sounds like the intent is a lot softer than the language is. And just knowing, you know, I've been on my family's land for 30 years, and I don't want in 10 years to have to be like, well, that guy said actually the intent wasn't that they're decommissioning the existing wells. But that's what the language says. So I'd wondering if that would be taken into consideration for all of us kind of on those lines. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rumble. Anybody else in the room this evening wishing to give public comment? Miss Julie, anybody online?
Not seeing anyone online, Mayor.
Okay, we will close public comment. We have no business tonight, and so we will just go into council reports and mix it up a little bit. Anybody itching to go first? They have an update? Councilor Hamilton.
Thank you so much. I wanted to give a little special shout out to start to Councilor Favela because her son Preston officially began his journey with the U.S. Air Force, and I just wanted to say congratulations. And I'm not going to cry the rest of the time. Okay, so something fun also was that I finally got to have my city manager briefing at Rosars at 7 a.m. with Councilor Burkle and Councilor Wells, and that was a real delight. I got to be honest with you. So this week I was school board. They have 2 big roofing projects underway for Ridgefield High School, almost done with the shop and the commons, and then Union Ridge all of their tar work is done. They had a significant amount of damage that they're having to kind of rectify now, but that should be done by the end of this month. And then I spoke last time to this, the cell phone policy review was a big hot topic there, and so they were talking about some feedback they'd gotten and potentially waiting for the rollout of said bags, but I think it sounded like they were going to move forward and just go listen to the administrators and the people that were giving them kind of their expertise. I also went to the Ridgefield Main Street board meeting. There was a great presentation from Ethan Perry from the Port of Ridgefield, which was, it's going to be so exciting. Ton of talk about moolah too, which is like, it's such a hot topic and such a great asset for our downtown businesses. And so I'm going to meet with a couple of those business owners coming up to just really discuss that program, how it benefits them, how we can make it better. And then there's an upcoming wine walk through Ridgefield Main Street on November 1st, if you're able to attend that. And that's about it. Thank you.
Councilor Burkle.
Thank you. Just a few things. I was able to attend the Multicultural Festival, which always is a remarkable event in our city. Look forward to it every year, and every year it's quite spectacular. City manager briefing, and then I attended the port meeting, and a couple of things. About a year ago, a Boy Scout came forward working on his Eagle badge and decided he wanted to do a project locating derelict boats in Lake River. As a result of that project, last year they were able to retrieve somewhere in the area of a dozen derelict boats. They will tomorrow be going back out and retrieving one other that has been found. Really good for our community and Lake River. Also an update, as many of you know, there's approximately 15 houses or properties in Ridgefield that were contaminated with the removal of all of the contaminated product from the port. They currently have 5 underway. One, I believe, has been completed, and they have a total of 15 to take care of, but they're making good progress. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Wells.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just attended the briefing on Tuesday. I attended Clark Regional Wastewater meeting before it started. I went in to have papers signed. I went in and give everybody a high five. And they took a look at me and they said, "Looks like you just come off the farm." And I said I did, and I was going back again. That was before the meeting started. And then the briefing, and I was at the port meeting also.
When I got to the meeting, they said you had just left.
Oh, did you? Okay, you were there. You weren't there when I was there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Councilor Davis.
All right, there we go. Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, had a few things going on. Since the last meeting, we've had a couple of meetings related to C-Tran. There's a lot going on, behind the scenes in meetings and everything else related to the composition of their board. And, not to really go into the heavy details, I definitely want to give some credit to Mayor Cole. There's something out there called the Ridgefield Letter. Mayor Cole sent a letter basically going to bat for our community in regards to having what we deem as fair representation on the C-Tran board, and that was a recommendation that is now being forwarded onto the state. And there's going to be processes that unfold over the next days and weeks related to that, but I believe it deserves to be put out there that, our community stepped forward, and more specifically our mayor stepped forward and really went to bat, not just for Ridgefield, but for, the smaller cities in our county, to have what we deem as being fair representation. I just want to make sure our community knows that we're, trying to take a lead in that. I'll echo Councilor Burkle in his comments about the Multicultural Festival. It was just so cool. I love how the farmers market made its way down. It was like this big party, and Saw tons of people walking around and just engaging with, different vendors and different foods and things of that nature and different celebrations that were happening at Overlook. And it was a really, really special time, and I'm glad the weather held out for us as well. And then I'd be remiss to not talk a little bit about what day it is in our nation's history. As a history teacher, 8th grade, it's interesting to talk to kids about it because they weren't born. And so, they know a lot of and by that age, they kind of know what happened. But they, you got to say something. And, for my history classes today, they just kind of want to know, like, what stood out. And, I usually talk about, the human aspects of it, seeing the people that held up signs of loved ones that they were looking for, because this was pre-social media and stuff like that, and how that really tugs on your heart. But I talked about something that they probably have heard of, and that's those days afterwards and the unity that we had as a country. And we're in a tough spot these days, and being able to share what that was like with those kids, I thought was really impactful. And, Councilor Hamilton knows there's not a lot of silent times with 8th graders, but I had, it's always a conversation where you can hear a pin drop. And I think that it was a little bit more important, this time around, having that conversation and sharing what that was about. And so that was really actually a humbling kind of experience for me to be able to share that with them. But I hope it's something that we as a community kind of think about as well as we move forward in these interesting times.
Very good.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you for that, Counselor. Counselor Favela.
I attended meetings, but tonight I just really wanted to reflect on one of our nation's hardest days in history, which is 9/11. It was a day of loss and unimaginable pain. I remember very vividly, I was in 6th grade, and I actually stayed home from school sick that day, and I was living on a military base in Texas, and it really just rocked the entire community, but especially in my house, because I had a military family member who then subsequently had to leave for quite some time to be stationed elsewhere. So out of that pain, though, it really revealed our deepest strength. And it was a day where we all stood, and the days after, shoulder to shoulder. No matter what you believed in, no matter who you prayed to, no matter what flag you flew, we were in unity, and we honored every life, and we carried each other through that time. So I just hope that we can remember to always choose compassion, and may Ridgefield continue to be a place where every life is valued. My condolences to every family member who lost a loved one during that day, but also a huge thank you to our first responders, our servicemen and women who willingly put their life on the line to save you, because they don't care who you pray to, what flag you fly, or what you look like. They are there to save you and see that through, and to protect as well. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Counselor. Mayor Pro Tem.
Wow, thank you. I happened to be in Florida. I had flown to Florida the night before for a conference, a huge conference. So here we were in Florida for this conference, and all of a sudden they changed the conference to the screens, and they start showing the towers. And of course, consequently, we were stuck in Florida for the next 7 days because they weren't flying any flights out. It was a crazy, crazy week. And of course, yesterday was a really bad day too, with the shooting of the gentleman. So yeah, this has been quite a week. So today, I spent most of the day stressing out over Ridgefield Heights and the things that have happened there with the community. You guys don't know anything about that, but anyway, the property, whatever, and all these things. And I told one of the gentlemen that I was going to try to talk about it tonight, but our city manager has this covered, of course, and taken care of, as of course he does. And so anyway, I'm not going to be concerned about that or talk about that. I will say that at the wastewater meeting, that they talked about the temperature of the discharge from the Ridgefield we had shut down the Ridgefield treatment, right? Or we're shutting it down, and they were talking about the temperature being higher than it is supposed to be. And it is going to cost and cause some issues because it's too high. And I don't know what the solution's gonna be for that, Lee. I assume you know something about that.
Yeah, no, I just know that last year it was up
Yeah.
above the TDM, total daily heat range going
Right.
into Lake River.
Right.
And but they are working on a solution to solve that.
They're trying to solve it, but he said in the meantime, it's, if they go over and it's going to be constant. So John was definitely concerned about that at the meeting Tuesday. So, other than that, Give More 24 is open for giving, and Neighbors Helping Neighbors is one of the nonprofits that is listed under Give More 24, and that is a nonprofit that is very near and dear to my heart. And it's a food bank here in Ridgefield, and if you want to spread the word about that, I would appreciate it. Anybody that is interested in helping Neighbors Helping Neighbors, there is $2,500 available for matching funds right now, and it goes through September 25th, so please consider spreading the word about giving to neighbors. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Couple updates from me just over the last couple of weeks, and several of these have been touched on, but I'll touch on them again. First and foremost, just on C-Tran, I've talked about this the last couple of weeks, and just to update council, I think everyone kind of knows where we ended up, but this board composition committee where we looked at the makeup of the C-Tran board, and it really became sort of a, how do we do this in an equitable way, or where you know, we still feel like small cities, as well as small cities, still have a voice, feel like they are making an impact on what the public transportation policy is here in Clark County, and then also making sure that the county represents unincorporated Clark County residents. And I got to really say that, you know, like, this was a collaborative effort. Special thanks to Councilor Davis for all of the work and being supportive there along the way. I think we've had numerous phone calls and conversations repeatedly preparing for this, because it's weighty stuff, it's complex stuff, and from a policy standpoint, it kind of gets into minutia. And then, you know, there's also a political component too, and it got a little spicy at times. I think there's a lot of strong opinions on what that board looks like. To City Manager Stewart, you know, like, just killer work on just all of the research that you put into that, and the discussions that you're willing to have with Councilor Davis and I, and keeping council abreast and everything like that. Councilor Davis did allude to that, but we did submit a letter on behalf of the city that reflected our reasoning behind what the board composition should be. And, you know, currently without going too much into it, it would be what we call a 3-3-3 board. So small cities get 3 seats, the county gets 3 seats, and then the city of Vancouver, being the largest jurisdiction, gets 3 seats. And really felt like that there was a good legal argument for that, because the legislation and the statute that's as it's written is really not clear. And I think it was kind of done in haste. And so I think that we provided some insight there. And I think it holds some weight. And so much so that when we were talking about this at the committee at C-Tran last week, that entire committee really wanted our letter, as it's called, the Ridgefield letter, to be submitted to the state along with our preferred recommendation. And that's a proud moment for us, because I think that, you know, when you do the work, when you're committed to an outcome that is not based off of a power dynamic or you know, who's got control, or a political retribution, or anything like that, you can actually put forward good policy suggestions. And I think we did that. And I'm really proud of the work that we did here and how we showed up in our community. And I think that it really did not go unnoticed amongst other cities, that Ridgefield showed up and as a class act, and we did some really good work, and we have the Ridgefield letter as a result. So that's pretty cool. The Multicultural Festival was last weekend. I think that was also mentioned as well. Really good turnout. I'm not sure what it compared to in previous years, but first Saturday is always kind of bustling and stuff. But, you know, getting out there and just seeing all of that, I just love that event for this community. And what I love is hearing around town, before, after, and during, where people say, I didn't know that Ridgefield had a multicultural festival. Why Ridgefield, you know? And, you know, because you'd expect maybe Vancouver to have that or something, but, you know, Ridgefield, because that's how we roll here. We show up, and special thanks to the Multicultural Initiative that put that on. Maggie, you're here today. You're part of that board. Thank you for you and to everybody that's a part of that, and for volunteering, but it was a wonderful event, so thank you so much. We're in budget season, by the way, so the budget advisory was this week. There's a lot going on there just to kind of make everything meet. And I'm really, again, hand it to you. We do this all the time, but it just, I don't get tired of it. Where we started out, kind of the first run at it was I think 800 grand in the red. And then we got it back to, I think we're like 80 grand up now. So, and that's without making any substantial cuts, no staff cuts, no level of service cuts. We do an incredibly good job here managing our city. Read the headlines of other cities and other jurisdictions and what they're going through. That's not us. We do a really good job. We're not done yet. We still have some work to do on this body, but I'm really proud of the work we're doing already. And then next week, as we're speaking of comprehensive plan, we're having a joint work session with other cities and the county council to go through and talk about our end of the comprehensive plan and hear from other cities what the challenges they're going through and looking to the county to say, hey, this is where we need your support. This is what we need from you in order to execute the vision of our residents in our city. So looking forward to that as well. And then last but certainly not least, congrats to Councilor Favela. She is just joining the Leadership Clark County class of 2026. And you kicked that off earlier this week, and so it was good to go to support you with that as well. But we're looking forward to cheering you on. That's it from me. Over to you, City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council and the community. Only a few things to follow up on. You've already covered a lot of the great work that's already been going on and the events that have been occurring and that will occur. As we spend this day and always tell ourselves and remind ourselves to never forget 9/11, one of the things that always helps us here in Ridgefield is Post 44 of the American Legion.
Yes.
And I just want to give a special shout out
Absolutely.
to them and to the scouts that help American Legion Post 44 to put those flags out. And so that, you know, when you're coming into the office in the morning, it's early in the morning, all of a sudden the flags are out. It's a reminder of that, oh yeah, it's that day. And it is a wonderful reminder of some of the most important days that we have and that we celebrate and that we remember here. So I just want to give special thanks to them. As far as a couple of things coming up, looking forward to Oktoberfest, which is tomorrow, and Saturday starts at 5 p.m. tomorrow? 4 p.m. 4 p.m. tomorrow at Abrams Park. The Lions Club is sponsoring Oktoberfest, so I hope people will get out and go. The weather should be great on Friday and Saturday for it, so we expect that will be a great time in our community. A couple of other things coming up. Next week, we will have a study session at 4 p.m. To discuss some of the methodologies that you have as a council and that we have as a community to help assure that we have funding available for our public safety as we continue to grow and move forward. So that'll be a good conversation with you all on the 25th, 2 weeks from now. CTRAN, it was mentioned that the conversation about CTRAN, they also do have a long-term strategic plan that they're putting together. And they're going to come share that with our community at 5:30 on September 25th, so right before the next city council meeting. They'll be right in here for an hour doing just an open house, talking about their strategic plan, which is a great opportunity to, again, talk about regionally how we're connected and then what CTRAN can provide specifically for our residents as well. So I hope people will come out for that, and we'll make sure that we get the word out. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Council, any questions for City Manager? All right, cool. We'll go to Mr. Thamer.
All right, tonight I wanted to give an update on our water conservation strategy. We, over the last few weeks, have seen a significant decrease in the demand on the water system, and so on Monday we were able to drop down to level 2. Some key things I wanted to highlight for the summer as we wind down this strategy. We saw an average decrease in our water use of about 275,000 gallons per day,
Wow.
which that is a lot, but when we put it in perspective, we were in stage 3 for approximately 75 days, which 275,000 times 75 days, about over 20 million gallons of water we conserved as a community.
Wow.
It's not a trivial amount for sure. Another key thing, trying not to nerd out too much from water world here, but our max day, so in the water system, max day, we're always trying to plan for the highest peak use. When we're not using a lot of water, it's not a big deal. It's when we're using a lot of water. So we look every year at what our max day was, and we do all of our planning for that. Typically, a max day for a water system is going to be in July or August, the hottest months when people are watering and all of that. As we look at our numbers, though, our max day is going to be in May, which was before our water conservation strategy went into place. We did approximately 3.1 million gallons one day in May, and we never got back to 3 million gallons once the conservation strategy went into place. So that's all I have. Happy to answer any questions.
Yep.
Is there a way we can communicate with our community the savings that was generated by going to stage 3 when we did? The reason I say that, I heard a number of complaints, people thinking it was too soon and too severe, but I think if we could communicate what you accomplished, I think that would be very, very beneficial.
We can certainly do that through social media and other public outreach.
And there is a social media post that went out very recently and talked about that and the savings and the peak usage. But a lot of people don't look at social media, and so we can certainly look at integrating that into our next edition of the Ridge newsletter to have something tangible in people's hands. We also have our utility bills that we put information into those as well, so that's something we might be able to add in there to be able to actually show them in their utility bills, show them that information. But we'll work on that.
Any other questions for Mr. Thamer? All right, go ahead.
I don't have a question. I'm totally going to tell on myself right now, but I have to tell you, when we first went into the water conservation, we were out of town at an AWC conference, and my husband sent me a picture of a small pool in my backyard that he just filled up. And I'm like, you do know that you should not be doing that. And then I talked to Mr. Steve over here, and he's like, oh yeah, we had to respond to like a water leak or something. I started panicking, thinking that you guys were tracking every single person and that y'all were gonna roll up at my house and ask me why all that water was now missing. So anyway, do you remember that? I got all weird because I'm like, oh, are you guys doing that? Anyway, we followed it after that, but thank you for all your hard work. I appreciate it.
With that, gonna move on. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to follow up on your mention of the Budget Advisory Committee. So I just want to thank all the council members that were there, staff that was there, and our citizen member who's also here tonight. We went through a lot of work to get the budget to where it was so we could present to the Budget Advisory Committee. We'll come back at the first study session in October to meet with full council. We've been given a lot more homework to do some more work and work on that budget and really dial it in. So we'll be working on that, and then we'll be coming back with some more information for you.
Great, looking forward to it. Council, any questions for Mr. Johnson? Thank you very much. Ms. Lust.
Thanks, Mayor. I don't have anything else this evening.
Any questions for Ms. Lust? Okay, off the hook. Ms. Notnaris? Nothing. All right. We'll go to Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have anything as well. Happy to answer any questions.
Yes, from Councilor Burkle.
Chief, I would just like to thank you for supplying us with the speed survey. And I was taken back by the fact that a person on Royal Road achieved a top speed of 120 miles an hour in the dip.
That is frightening.
Uh-oh.
What'd she say?
I'm sorry, but I don't think it was Councilor Wells.
Come on, Mayor Cole. No, just kidding. Wasn't me. Yeah. Any other questions or comments for Chief Doriot? Okay. All right, we'll go to Ms. Parker online for City Attorney.
Hello, Hello and good evening. I do not have anything to report this evening, but I am happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Council, any questions or comments for our city attorney? You look nice and comfortable there. I guess we'll just leave you be. Thank you so much for joining us and hanging through. So, yeah, good to see you. Okay, with that, this meeting is adjourned.